Hello, today we're talking about some lawn care issues. As we're rolling into the month of August, it's time to start thinking about all of the lawn renovations and seeding and things that we would typically think of associated with fall lawn care. A couple of points I want to point out to you today. One is that August is actually the best month to seed. Mid-August to mid-September here in central Kentucky will be your prime window to put down grass seed. Now there are some caveats. Obviously it's hot, it's dry this time of year, so watering will be critical to establishing new stands of turf. But given the drought histories we've had the past several years, a lot of our turf has become thin. We have a lot of weed issues because thin grass encourages weed growth. So we're going to talk about some things you can do and also address some of the issues and common homeowner practices that lead to some of our stormwater issues with excess nutrients. We're going to look at some turf here, and I don't claim that our grass is the nicest. You can see there's lots of weeds and things. Generally, weed control is one of the bigger homeowner concerns, and it's good to point out that most people would resort to chemicals as their first line of defense to take care of weeds. I'd like to emphasize that you generally don't have a lot of weed problems or weed competition in thick, dense, healthy turf. Our turf grass of choice here in central Kentucky is turf type tall fescue. There's hundreds of name varieties, most of them good, but if you look for a turf type tall fescue, you'll generally be in good shape. The other thing we ought to address is seeding. Generally, grass seed, especially in the summer, scattered on top of the ground is totally ineffective. You've got to find a way to get that grass seed in the soil. There are pieces of equipment you can rent or companies you can hire that will come in, power seed this or split seed this and get the seed actually planted through all of the turf that's there, put it about 1/4 inch deep. It's not a bad idea to fertilize fall plantings. You can do that either at the time of seeding or you can do it later in the fall. For central Kentucky, we recommend a late fall window for feeding, October through December, and for most homeowner situations, one application of fertilizer is sufficient. We've come to accept that the standard practice is spring fertilizations or putting down weed control products or crabgrass products that have fertilizer, and we come to find that generally speaking, those fertilizers applied spring and summer will do as much to benefit the weeds as they do our cool season grasses that want to slow down in the heat. So those are some good tips to keep in mind. One feeding in the fall, in that 3-month window, will be your best bet. Another thing I'd like to talk to you about is how to apply fertilizers. We have so much issue with excess nutrients ending up in our stormwater and then of course affecting our water supply, and a lot of that comes from homeowner lawn food applications. When you fertilize, you want to make sure that you soil test. We offer soil testing services here at Cooperative Extension in Fayette County. There's a $6 charge for that, and we'll tell you what nutrients you need. In central Kentucky, because of our limestone parent material, we rarely need phosphorus or potassium, but a soil test is the only way to tell that. Because nitrogen is generally the limiting element and it is water soluble, it's constantly moving through the soil. So we always provide a nitrogen application. If you will actually use a mulching mower and leave your clippings on the lawn, that'll take care of about 25% of your nitrogen needs. So you can look at your soil test. We don't test for nitrogen, we just give you the recommended rate. You can take 25% off of that number if you're recycling or using a mulching mower. That's a good practice. When you do feed, it's important to apply your fertilizer. You don't want to put it down right before a pending rainstorm. That'll wash a lot of the fertilizer off the lawn into the storm drains. You don't want that. You also want to be careful when applying to keep it off of sidewalks, driveways, those sorts of things, because that has nowhere to go other than into our storm sewers. After you have applied your fertilizer, you may want to water it in lightly. That'll start activating it and hasten the speed at which it gets in the ground. If we're really, really dry and not getting any rain at all, it might be best not to feed in a really drought-stressed lawn. You can see some things in our grass here. We've got Dutch clover, which is actually a weed I don't mind. It's going to be a nitrogen-fixing legume, and this, back in the 50s, this was common stuff in lawns, but we've gotten so anti-broadleaf weed that a lot of people have moved away from this. But this is a good natural organic way to put nitrogen into the lawn. It can actually be seeded in and it will complement your fescue stands. Crabgrass, things like that, you're probably going to have to do some chemical controls or some preventative measures, but keep in mind, if you've got healthy turf, you're feeding properly in the fall, generally the thick, healthy grass will keep a lot of that. I should also speak to mowing heights. 3 inches high for fescues are going to be the ideal place to be. And when your grass is tall, healthy, lush, it has deeper roots, it's more resistant to drought, and it will help compete with a lot of the weeds itself, so you don't have to. If you'll follow those tips, you can have a nice lawn, we'll have healthier stormwater, and we can all be better for it. But test your soil, make sure you know what nutrients you need, only apply the ones that are needed, apply them at the proper time in the fall, and don't always associate weed control or crabgrass preventers with lawn food. You generally can find the products without them, and that's the best route to go.